Hello and welcome to Drunk Creek's farm. Today we're heading down the road. We've got 30 acres of oats and peas just a little bit away that we're going to cut because tomorrow our custom guy is going to come and round bale it for us and wrap it as green feed for our beef cows. He's going to individually wrap it and then bring it back here for us and pile it for us. And then we'll feed it from there. You just because it's a completely wrapped bale, we only have prongs for our tractor. You need someone with a grapple to be able to move it without puncturing the wrap. If it gets punctured, the feed can start to go off and sort of decompose because the air gets to it. So it's important that it remains intact. Here's the difference a little moisture could make. Very quickly, we go from thin and, I don't know, 12 inches, 16 inches tall to just a thick forest of peas and oats. And they're probably 4 feet tall. You can see it, kind of the difference cut too. So kind of what the pods are like. This is, they're maybe even just a little further than they should be. Kind of more like that's maybe a little better. This is just the pod. I mean, really, just in bloom is ideal, but you kind of hard to get the whole field that way. So I'm not sure where we're gonna end up in terms of bales. It's really difficult to kind of gauge what's there. There definitely is volume in some areas. Based on our field rent, the cost of seeding and kind of inputs, I'd say that we probably need 65, maybe 70 bales off this 30 acres to be kind of a break even. That's kind of factoring on the guy that's he's gonna bale, wrap, and deliver them back to the farm for us. So he's charging 25 a bale to do that. And so I figure if we get about 65 or 70, then we're about 40 a bale on our inputs, like between rent and seeds and everything. So if we get anything kind of above that, then we're better off than buying hay, though that doesn't really factor in our time. But so that's kind of 70 is probably our magic number of whether it was worth it or not. the next day. Finished late last night. It was getting pretty dark by the time I was done cutting the back section. So we're just waiting on the custom guy to come bale today. He raked the front 20 acres yesterday evening, and then just the back was a little too wet last night, so he's going to rake that today. I don't have a clue how much hay we're actually going to end up with out of this. My best guess is something between 100 and 110 bales, but that could be way off in either direction. When it gets cut, it looks thick, like you kind of think like what it would be in hay, and then you cut it down and there's a lot less volume there than even with hay, so I really have no idea what we're going to end up with. So while I'm waiting, I'm picking stones. Here's one of our oats and peas bales. You can see all the green, all the moisture there, dark green. The guy baling says they're around, what do you say, 40% moisture, so that should be 60% dry matter. Just a lot of feed in a bale. Oh yeah, they're heavy. You can smell the peas. It's very different smelling hay, but it smells good. The cows will just eat that up. So this is like premium feed for them. Our normal hay, where we'd be baling at, would be probably 10 or 11% protein. Whereas here we're looking at something in the neighborhood of 13%, 13 maybe 14%, and with the grains in there, they're just full of energy. So it's a really good feed. They'll eat it right up. And with it being kind of green, they'll be a little less likely to pick through it. It's good for them, and as we'd say, really palatable. There's if these are 1,000 pounds, and they might be sort of between 1,000 and 1,200 pounds at 60% dry matter. You're looking at something between 600 and 720 pounds of dry matter. If we're getting a little technical about our feed, that it'll work out to being pretty close to a month of feed for one cow for us. So it's a lot of feed in a bale. With the high moisture and getting wrapped like this, it'll basically act like a little silo, or kind of like one of those baggers that you'll fill with silage or haylage then. So the hay, well, actually the oats and peas will ferment in here and become really acidic and like silage. Like you'll call it a silage bale or a haylage bale. So that's kind of what we're looking at. So eventually the whole field will be dotted with these little marshmallows as they go around and wrap all the bales. And then he'll come along with a special grapple for the loader to pick all these up. With it being wrapped like that, if you get any puncture holes in them, then the air will get in and it'll heat and mold, like I was saying, so you get a lot of spoilage, so you have to be pretty careful. And if you do poke any holes in it, then you gotta go and seal them up pretty quickly so that you don't lose your hay. So you ended up with about, what do you get, 17 bales on the first 2 rounds. So I expect we're somewhere in the neighborhood of 65 to 70 bales on this front 20 acres. So I think we'll be right around where I figured with the 100 to 110 mark. That would be my guess. So we'll be doing, considering the year, it could be a lot better, but it could be a lot worse. That's it definitely hasn't been a waste putting these in here. The custom guy sells a fair bit of feed, and he said he figured that these bales in the fall, with the way that feed is, if we don't get some rain, could be 80 or 100 bucks a bale for these, which last fall they were about, I think I was seeing them for about 65. So that's a big jump. It's just kind of what happens when you have dry year after dry year, is any of the reserves get used up and everybody's looking for hay. And all of Eastern Ontario is pretty dry, so. But we'll be in all right shape. I figured at kind of 65 or 70 bales we'd be break even, but that was based on a $65 bale. So it'll have been worthwhile, and now it'll just be deciding whether or not we're gonna seed something into this to try and get a decent second cutting. Problem is it's been dry and there's not a lot of rain even in the kind of long range forecast, so you kind of have to factor in the cost of seed and all this and whether or not it's worth it. One thing is the field's already rented, so it kind of takes away that cost. And that's our fully harvested marshmallow field. So we got something in the neighborhood of 85 to 90 bales off of the whole field. Oats and peas are here. She seems interested. Seems like a positive enough review. Apparently bears like oats and peas too. You can see a little claw prints in the wrap there. So apparently they made a bit of a mess in the back part of the field. So this one will just feed right away, but we'll have to tape some of them up so the air can't get in. See what the beef cows think. What do you think, Aggie? Oh, it's a bit of plastic. Shoot. Well, that's about as well as I could do with the 434. It just doesn't have the weight, well, weight or strength. It was having a hard time lifting it. But there's not enough weight to be able to maneuver the front end. It was kind of tricky getting it in here. It'd be nice to have it up. I won't be able to get this fully closed with the way it is, but we'll get it most of the way. So everywhere that the bears poked holes in it, we got to go back with tape and seal it up. Because everywhere that air gets in, then it'll mold and rot and fairly quickly. Like the worst bale is already molding. I expect right under here there's a bit of mold and it hasn't been that long. It can have a pretty big impact on the feed value of a bale. That's kind of an idea of how much damage those bears can do, and that's just in the need to repair that. Already the quality of the hay right around where those openings are will have dropped some, and the bigger the opening the worse that'll be. So hopefully you got them all. I probably didn't, but it can be pretty hard to see some of the little holes in it. So that's it for our first cutting of oats and peas. We're hoping that we'll get enough rain that we can get a bit of a second cutting, even if it's kind of later in September. It's green feed, so we'll still be able to get it off and bale and wrap it. So yeah, we ended up with 89 bales total, which is okay. If you enjoy this content, please like and subscribe. And if you want to get notified when our latest videos are up, you just click that little bell icon and it'll try to make sure that you get notifications. And if you comment what sort of future content you maybe would like to see from what we're doing here on the farm. We still have to get the W4 going, so we're going to work on that. I do have to build a little chicken coop for our, I think we have 8 out of our group of layers. 8 of them ended up being hens, so the roosters will go, so we'll build a little house and area for them. And I'm maybe looking at building a creep feed so that our beef bottle calves can go out with the beef herd and still get their grain without the big cows eating it. And stay tuned for future content.